So, you've clicked on this video because I've probably given it a crazy title. Um, my working title is, Existentialism and You, or like Existentialism and a Floppy Cowboy, Vintage Cowboy Doll. Something like that. You're, if you just saw this and you're like, I'm gonna click on it and I don't know anything about existentialism, then this section is for you. If you do know anything about existentialism and you don't need a brief recap on what it all means, then you can just skip to the, what's that thing that they have on YouTube? Chapters? Just click on that thing. Click on that thing, and, actually, right, although I do, I take philosophy in school, we don't actually do a lot on the history of philosophy. We do about as much as, like, the teacher being like, oh, this guy was born in, 1897. No specific philosopher, just random year. But that's sort of the extent. Oh, I actually don't want... I don't want these, so I'm gonna just put them there. Essentially, I won't be able to give you a kind of go over on the historical timeline of existentialism. But I can give you a general overview of some of the major beliefs. Existentialism is a family of philosophical theories that essentially they hold a few key, like, united beliefs. One, they believe in human agency because, well, some philosophers don't believe in human free will, right? Because, well, cause and effect, right? Things happen because they're caused by something. And by being caused by something, we also have things that happen also have an effect after they are caused. And that effect can be a cause, will be a cause for something else happening. So, because of that, philosophers kind of argue that what we do is fixed from the beginning. At the start of the chain, our fate is fixed. But existentialist theories generally hold that humans have free will and that humans have agency, and it's a very important factor in their belief. Because the thing about the kind of, if you've heard anything about existentialism, the main thing is that this idea that humans don't have an inbuilt purpose, right? And that we have to make our purpose with our free will. That's kind of the gist of existentialism. Oh, by the way, existentialism also typically is an atheist family of views because, at least in monotheistic religions, as in like Christianity, Catholicism, Islam, the God usually decides like humans' destiny. So obviously, with that, you can't have free will if God knows and has decided what you're going to do. So usually, generally, existentialist philosophical theories are atheist, and they reject the existence of a god. But the guy who started it, which I think is Kierkegaard, yes, Soren Kierkegaard, he effectively kind of started existentialism, but under the lens of God existing. So it was an existentialism that accommodated for the existence of God, which is, at least it seems contradictory to me, but, well. Existentialism also has some connections to nihilism because both believe that the world has no inherent meaning. But, so, in this respect, we have Nietzsche, a very famous philosopher, also kind of, feel like some people are a little wary of him, and he is a little bit infamous because of his kind of ties to Nazism. Is that how you say it? I forgot. But his philosophy has been tied, or rather, has been reappropriated, let's just say, by Nazis. Nietzsche had this concept of the Übermensch. It's German. It just means Superman or Overman. It can be translated as both. It just means that somebody who has self-realized and has risen above everybody else, right? by kind of not being bound by the world's limitations, if you will. So that's kind of what's relevant, I think. He also has this idea called eternal return, but I'm not entirely sure if that's fully like relevant to what I want to discuss. About Woody. I've almost forgotten that this video is about Woody from Toy Story. And just Toy Story at large. Nowadays, so the general modern definition of existentialism is holy— oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! Okay. They really said, like, shut up, nerd. I could also talk about Simone de Beauvoir, who is the philosopher that is kind of credited for modern feminism. Not modern feminism, just feminism full stop. She's kind of credited for, well, I mean, I guess the what are they called? The gang that of women that were like, we want voting rights. What are their name? I forgot. But the suffragettes. But they didn't have like a specific philosophy. Simone de Beauvoir was like one of the, well, at least to me, to my knowledge, the first philosopher who was like, I'm gonna specifically talk about how, you know, the concepts of like gender and sex and whatnot. That's why her book is called The Second Sex, because women are the second sex, right, and socially. Oh, I'm not gonna get into that. She does have some stuff about existentialism, but it's specifically in the lens of feminist existentialism, and I don't think that is applicable to Toy Story. Again, I've almost forgotten that this is about Toy Story. Oh, I spy that, glowfly. Where am I? I'm just thinking about how everything that I say could potentially be, like, wrong, and like somebody, like an actual philosophy major could just like appear and be like, all of the stuff that you've said is hogwash and you need to die. Oh, I thought they I don't actively keep up with Minecraft updates. I do like see it on my, you know, Twitter and whatnot, but I don't actively keep up. So, because I remember they we're not adding, right, back to actually talking about my, like, existentialist interpretation of Toy Story, or an attempt at an existentialist interpretation of Toy Story. The nature of the toys' existence mirrors humans' existences, where toys are humans, and, like, the children, right, are, I know it's a popular and like kind of edgy, I guess, or not edgy, but like very like film theory, like film theory, game theory coded idea that interpretation that the children are all God. And my idea is kind of like that. It's not that they are God, it's that they represent pre-given purpose. They represent a socially ordained purpose, like a purpose that you're given by society, and the purpose that is mainstream, you know, and deemed as what is, I suppose, that is deemed as what you're supposed to do. And because of the way that toys exist in the Toy Story universe, which I'll explain later, the toys are essentially forced to eventually they are going to be forced to self-actualize and become, you know, individuals that live for themselves and define their own purpose, or else they will literally suffer torture for all eternity. The plot that is relevant for this discussion, that I think is relevant, Toy Story 1, what happens is that there are sentient toys, and they are with a boy called Andy. Woody is one of them. He is an antique cowboy doll. And when Andy moves house... Oh god, should I even explain this? Because Toy Story, did it not earn like 1 billion or like $1 trillion or whatever absurd number? Is there even like a single person on Earth that needs to like have this recapped for them? I mean, I'll just do it anyway to be safe, you know. Woody essentially... When Andy moves, Woody is kind of nervous. I think all the toys in general are nervous that they'll be replaced. I don't actually know why Andy would get new toys upon moving. That doesn't make much sense to me. Maybe that is an American rite of passage. Whenever you move, you get a new toy, but I'm Asian, so perhaps I have been cursed from birth. Basically, after that, hijinks kind of occur where Woody sort of just acts out of jealous, well, not jealous rage. Does he? Because he does make very, in the older Toy Story films, they do make all sorts of very frightening and scary expressions that could indicate anger. But he essentially does a lot of dumb stuff and gets into trouble by acting out of jealousy to sort of screw Buzz over. And at the end of the story, he learns to share Andy. Which at the time, considering just the context of Toy Story 1, was probably just a message about, like, getting a new family member or something, but that message is completely ruined by the rest of the movies. The second film is about Andy discovering that he is a vintage doll, because, I think only the audience really is kind of, this is only really alluded to the audience, but Andy is a valuable vintage toy, and he has a dilemma. He has to choose between a life of hollow fame, where he essentially spends the rest of eternity in a museum where he will be displayed and become famous, I guess, or he can choose to live a full life with the people that he loves. So that's kind of the message. It's that, like, a life of love and connection is going to fulfill you more than an eternity of fame. In the third movie, Andy is kind of grown up, and he's, like, literally college age now. He's kind of giving his toys away. And at first, the characters are kind of sent to this daycare, which is like a police state run by, like, a corrupt toy or something. It's literally crazy. Like, it's crazy to think about the fact that there's just a toy police state. After all of that is dealt with, whatever that was, we get what is it called again? A jungle temple, I think. Have never actually encountered one of these in survival on my own, so that is actually quite exciting. I wonder if I'm prepared. I should make an iron sword. Sticks. Shield, maybe? No, I won't have enough. I might not have enough iron left. I'll just make the sword first. Right, so at the end of Toy Story 3, if I remember correctly, what happens is that they get given to Woody and Andy kind of say their farewells. I don't remember if Andy like realizes that Woody is sentient. But they have this tearful farewell, and then they kind of get a new owner. Ow. Well, that's not a big deal. Whatever. Oh, okay. Well, that is really lame. I get why people complain so much about Minecraft sometimes. I have been in the kind of like the Minecraft community for a while. But most of it is just watching Hermitcraft. So not a lot of actual playing. And also in Hermitcraft, they kind of speed through everything in one episode to the end game, because, for them, the real game is the end game. Anyway, essentially what you need to know about Toy Story 4 is that Woody essentially just gives up on, I guess, needing attention and affection from children, and just decides to strike out on his own in the world. But yeah, that is kind of all, that is my quick, hopefully quick, because I don't know if I spent a lot of time explaining the plot of Toy Story. But that is kind of my quick synopsis of Toy Story's plot. Now let me start getting into what I wonder how long I've recorded. Let me quickly check. I've recorded for almost half an hour. Dear God. So, I've got to start speeding up. I've got to go fast. So, what about the toys makes them makes their existence an existential nightmare, and why is Toy Story, kind of an existentialist coded work? firstly, the toys of Toy Story are heavily implied to be immortal. We never really get confirmation that they can actually die, that they can ever feel the sweet release of death in their eternal lifetimes. We only get the vague idea that they can obviously feel pain, but even if they are torn apart and reassembled, it seems that they keep living. And we also, it's not clear if each part that gets torn off has its own separate conscious, or if it's only like what humans would perceive to be like the bit that does the self-consciousness. Especially because humans, at least human children, are shown to have the ability to create new life. They are shown to have the ability to create new consciousnesses. And so that would imply that the perception of a child is what determines what makes toys conscious. So, like, if a toy is conscious, that's based on the perception of like the children around them. Anyway, I know people will mention that scene in Toy Story 3 where they are kind of at the incinerator and they are fearing for their lives. Again, like, we never get direct confirmation that they can actually die. Like, or like, if they are melted to puddles by an incinerator, will they still be conscious? Right? It's possible that they could still be conscious. So that's all of that is to say is that the toys are immortal and they feel pain, yet they cannot die. So yeah, that's really uplifting to say about children's cartoon characters. Secondly, my second point is that these toys are all predisposed to have this intense desire for to be cared for and to receive attention from an owner. You know, it is possible for toys to learn to have a different pejorative, is that the right word, to have a different like goal or main purpose to their life, but you know, they're kind of that's their factory setting, is that they really care about children's opinion. Now they all also believe that life is not worth living if you do not have an owner, which is troublesome for the toys because, as I mentioned earlier, they are immortal, and, well, a toy, you know, is ultimately a product, at least in the eyes of most humans, who just, you know, view them as non-sentient objects. Their value and attractiveness as objects is going to decrease over time. And because of that, the number of children who are going to be willing to play with these toys is going to decrease over time. And at one point, they're going to reach, each toy is going to reach a point where, A, they are too deteriorated to not only, like, move around, if they can even move around. Not only, you know, is physical movement an issue as they age due to their immortality, because it seems that being immortal does not stop aging, but also their attractiveness towards humans will also kind of decrease exponentially over time. Abandoned toys are generally also shown to be like lonely and desperate and bitter. Like they usually become like villains. So what's the point of pointing all of this, right, aside from just pointing out how the Toy Story universe is kind of an existentialist nightmare? Well, we may be able to visualize Woody, at least in the lens of Toy Story 1 to 4, because Toy Story 5 is not out, but from what I've seen, Toy Story 5 appears to completely invalidate everything that I've said and am going to say. We can view Woody as the Ubermensch, this sort of character that rises over the need to, like, you know, this need for what society, or rather, this person who doesn't conform to what society has instilled in him, the purpose that society has instilled into him, and rather chooses his own purpose and lives as he wishes, right? In the first film, and really, in the first film, Woody is still kind of, you know, I guess a naive and someone who has not been hit with a spark of true knowledge of how one should truly, freely live their life. And as a result, he is still squabbling over Andy's attention, right? At the end of the movie, it does, you know, end at a somewhat good conclusion. I guess an analog would be, oh, instead of competing with each other in capitalism, we should just participate together in capitalism, in late stage capitalism. Although I guess competition, capitalism is a system that inherently, I'm not gonna talk about. No, I can't start talking about it. Anyway, not. And in Toy Story 4, that is kind of where the existentialism is like fully manifested, you could say, where Woody kind of realizes himself, right? He stops chasing after this impossible purpose of, this societal expectation that has been pushed upon him. Wow, I guess you could interpret Toy Story. You could interpret Toy Story as a stand-in for women, and like, appealing to toys as appealing to the patriarchy. Wow, I had not thought of it in that way. Well, I'll keep going. At the end of Toy Story, oh, well, not at the end, but in Toy Story 4, where you learn of I guess this social class of toys, or this cast of toys. I don't even know what word would be the right word to describe it, but this group, this social class of toys who, don't care about humans. They are called the Lost Toys. I think I already introduced them, but they are the Lost Toys, and the Lost Toys, do whatever they want, and they roam the world. They're kind of nomads. They're hippies, I guess, of the Toy Story universe. And Woody joining them is a sign of his self-actualization as somebody who lives for himself, who lives for, the world around him, rather than impossible, cruel ideals and a purpose that cannot fulfill him, right? He has created his own purpose of, I guess, just shuffling around America with his girlfriend. Although I guess they decided to not do that in Toy Story 5. I guess they changed their minds, ? So yeah, that is kind of, that is the kind of arc, why I think Toy Story 1 to 4, excluding 5, can be interpreted as an existentialist work, because because Woody decides to seek meaning on his own terms, rather than seeking meaning through, I suppose, pleasing society and pleasing social expectations. And really, Nietzsche once said, "God is dead and we have all killed him." Basically, what that meant was that science and innovation have kind of removed the need for God in humans' lives, right? Because, the society, even back in Nietzsche's time, which I don't remember what time that was, like 1890s, I guess, that kind of zone. But even in that time, people were living longer. Their quality of life was increasing. And Nietzsche, at least, he certainly felt that people had less or even no reason to believe in God anymore. Nietzsche was like, well, science and innovation, we have killed God by making him obsolete, essentially, is what he means. And so, in the Toy Story universe, you could say that Woody has killed God, right? Although I don't think that the human children are God themselves, because it's a very weird relationship to have with God, like a real provable God that you fight, you angst over whether or not God loves you. Well, I guess people do angst over whether God loves you, but you don't fight for God's attention, and nor do you see God and know where God is. Like that is not how it is in the monotheistic religions, the Judeo-Christian religions. In terms of my theory, a more plausible way to interpret it is that the children represent belief in a belief in a higher purpose, right? A higher purpose, I guess, is just what they represent. The conclusion is that they have to create their own purpose. They can't just follow this purpose that has been given to them by society. I feel like I'm repeating myself. Overall, like, by kind of arriving at this existentialist conclusion of living by our own whims, we solve the problem that toys deteriorate, because by living on their own, they can well, like, because one issue I mentioned is that toys will deteriorate, and you know, and I, although it's shown that like toys with limbs can repair themselves, toys might not want to do that because their identity is what humans perceive them as, the toy that humans perceive them as. And by freeing themselves of caring, by not caring essentially about what humans think of them, about how society at large thinks of them, they can kind of do they can change their physical appearance as they wish, and this means that they're free to repair themselves however they want, which is good for them because that means that if they suffer any physical injuries, they won't have to like wait until their child is like, I was about to be like, wait until their child takes them to a toy repairer, but no child is doing that. The child is throwing the toy in the garbage, or like dribbling all over it, or chewing on it when it becomes broken. The most intriguing consequence of becoming like free, self-realizing and deciding what their own purpose is that the implication is that toys are going to form their own society, and considering that more toys are made every single year, and more people are like the birth rate, well, the birth rate's not rising in some countries, but the human population is still slowly increasing, right, over time. There's this kind of silent implication in this frame, in my theory, that eventually the number of toys is going to be unsustainable, or rather that hiding the existence of these toys is going to be like an impossible task, because one child cannot possibly care for all of these toys. And like one child can maybe truly care for like 20, right? Maybe they have like 40, and they can only really truly care for like maybe at most 20, and that is a stretch because children's attentions are decreasing every year, right? As we all like to say in various YouTube essays. And well, what's eventually going to happen as a result of that is that more and more toys eventually are going to go on this path of self-realization, because it's really the only viable path for them long term. And if there are so many toys running around in a society, how are they going to hide themselves? It's not, some toys, they can hide themselves if you were a plush doll. What if you were a giant plush kangaroo? That is a very hard, that's very hard to hide unless the kangaroo just decides to like live in the sewers. It's about letting toys have their own choice. And hey, if that toy dinosaur wants to walk out in the street, you're gonna let that toy dinosaur, big fat plush dinosaur, you're gonna let him walk out in the street, right? Oh my god. At some point somebody's gonna notice, no matter how hard the toys try to hide themselves. Oh my god. I can't focus right now because there is a creeper. Okay. Phew. And eventually they're just going to have to, make themselves known to the humans, just so that humans are not like, there is a strange infestation of seemingly tiny, unexplained creatures that are roaming around. We need to do something drastic about this, because when humans are unsure about stuff, they tend to panic and go to drastic measures. So they will have to make themselves known, and they will have to be like, hey, we're sentient beings with hopes and dreams and our own desires. The possibility to make our own desires. We need our own space in the world, and they're gonna have to make peace treaties and establish their own country, and humans are gonna have to outlaw toys unless they want the population to like inflate until the entire world is dominated by toys. Until a war erupts between the humans and the toys, where the toys win because they can just swarm up on the humans like a crowd of rabid ants, on a crowd of cannibalistic ants. And also, I just want to say, the progress that I have made in this video, because this is gonna be my forever world, the progress that I have made is kind of embarrassing. Because I feel like most Minecraft players by now have like maybe set up a farm, Maybe they have the ability to go to the Nether. Like I saw that smithing village house. Most likely the people will have, you know, already entered the Nether by using the lava that is in there. Well, that's just how it is. I'm just bad at the game. I'm just worthless because I can't play Minecraft. And that's the truth. And I need to accept that instead of dwelling on it like I'm doing right now. Anyway, my conclusion is that Woody has no mouth and he must scream or something like that.